Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I am pleased to be back on the air. I was one of these people that never assumes I'm going to be here next week. Call me crazy, but I'm always grateful when I get a chance to talk to you. And the fact that I was kind of looking at the stats, and I think I'm up to about 25 countries of people downloading, and I got to give a couple of shout outs. Obviously, most of my downloads here in the United States, but I love it. I've got a nice little following in Singapore. I'm not sure why, but those numbers have been climbing, and I am really appreciated for that. And also, I want to thank the folks in Canada, Australia, the UK, and Italy, obviously, and other parts of the world that are actually taking time out of their schedules to tune in. So I want to thank you all very much. So as always, Happy New Year, and thank you again. I also want to make a quick announcement to the folks in the Pittsburgh area. It is not a rumor. It is true. I have been appointed the honorary consular here in Pittsburgh. So I will have more information about that coming out soon as far as how to get how to get a hold of me. A lot of folks have already discovered how to get a hold of me. It's kind of funny when I'm getting calls at work, my work email, my other cell phone, and it's okay. Once I get the official communications down, I will push all that information out. So if you're in the Pittsburgh or surrounding areas and you need help with things like documents or your Italian passport renewal, those are some of the jobs that the honorary consulate can do for you. But again, I'll put more information out about that. And lastly, if you have not had a chance to view it, a little bit of a promotion here, but the documentary Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner is available on Amazon Prime. So if you not have a chance to watch it, it's a wonderful documentary. I had a tremendous team. It was internationally filmed. We filmed in the United States and Italy. We had an opportunity to interview over 25 family members of the prisoners. Just an incredible story about, even in the worst of times, these guys bonded together and, they survived the horrors of war, and a lot of them fought in North Africa and Sicily. Eventually they make their way over to the United States as prisoners. And they were outside of Letterkenny Army Depot, outside of Chambersburg, PA. And the chapel that was built by the Italian prisoners of war in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, is still there. And if you have not had a chance to go see it, and you're anywhere in the area, or you think you're going to be driving through Pennsylvania, I do encourage you to go see the chapel. But in the meantime, I would ask that you go out to Amazon Prime, check out the documentary, Fedeltà, Soldier, Prisoner, and would definitely love your feedback on that. With that being said, a little bit of a theme has sort of arisen from a lot of the last few shows, and I've been having different folks from various entertainment segments, whether it was Gino not too long ago, who was an actor. I had Elijah, who was an actor. But I'm kind of very pleased to have another actor/filmmaker join me today. And him and I were talking, and what's funny is one of the things you've been catching me do is when I start the show, I try to make sure I pronounce the person's name correctly. So I said, how do you want me to say it? And him and I both agreed there's the American way and the Italian way. So I'm going to introduce him with the Italian way. And this is Giuseppe Puglisi. Joe, a.k.a. Giuseppe. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Steve, I'm doing very well. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show. And by the way, listening to the introduction, I am very impressed with you. The honorary consulate in Pittsburgh, and your documentary is a success, and something that says a whole lot about your talents, my friend.
Well, Joe, I appreciate that. I really do. And in fact, it's one of these things, or something in the last few years, and I'll say this not in a mean way, because you're like me, you're kind of a doer. There's too many people that had a lot of talent, and they just, for whatever reason, they didn't take a chance. They didn't try. And me, I'm like, I don't want to look back with the coulda, woulda, shouldas. So I'm going to try everything I can. Even if I'm not good or successful at it, at least I'll know I tried. So I appreciate what you said. And God willing, there's a lot of years ahead of both of us. And, we're going to keep doing good things. With that being said, Giuseppe, let's talk about you. This is your moment to shine, as we were kind of talking about before. And what I like to do is introduce the audience to my guests. So, as always, I like to start, where are you from? And tell me a bit about your background. And I mean younger background. We're going to get to the film stuff soon.
Sure, sure. A little bit of background of is also on IMDb under my bio, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the Sicilian neighborhood. A lot of Sicilians moved into the Bushwick section of Brooklyn, which is where I grew up, and spent a lot of years in Brooklyn and Bushwick and in Bensonhurst, and eventually made my way out of there. Went to St. John's University, got my 2 degrees, a BA in Psych and an MBA, and then I got into a corporate life and got relocated down to Maryland and back to New Jersey and another part of New Jersey, and then finally Pittsburgh. So, I had a corporate life, and then I had 2 bookstores. I owned 2 bookstores for about 10 years, and then I taught as an adjunct at 5 different colleges, and becoming full-time. My last full-time position was at La Roche University here in Pittsburgh for 14 years, and I'm retired now, doing some adjunct work, but I'm retired. But I got into the film business. Is that something I did early on in life? Like I never participated in school plays. I never had any desire to do that. Actually, at the time, I was a relatively shy individual, so I never really participated. And then I started. I took an acting class. I just looked up at one of these community colleges and took an acting class back in 2011, and then it went from there. I got into a great acting class, and I did some live theater, two small parts and 2 performances, and then I started doing extra work. And I enjoyed seeing myself on TV and enjoyed being in the group and enjoyed all that stuff involved. And then I got into some different speaking parts, Point Park University and the like, and then I got into speaking parts in different movies that are available, on streaming. But it was around 2015 that my business partner, Dave Petty, and I, Dave was also taking acting classes, kind of sat down and said, hey, you know what, the whole landscape now really focuses on horror films and mob films. And why don't we just write something ourselves? And it just happened like that. Like there's 2 people deciding to do something, and it turned out to be eventually what was a 5-year venture to write a script, and we decided on a script that eventually we called That's Amore, involving 4 Italians, and it's a romantic comedy, with a lot of humor in it, a lot of sensitivity in it, and we did everything. Dave and I really took the burden. We financed it. We hired a cast. We acted in it. We shot in July 2018. We found 2 great actresses to play major roles. One was Barbara Russell, who was known in Pittsburgh, having been participating in the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood. And then Tammy Pescatelli, who is a well-known comedian who still tours and has specials on Amazon. So both of them decided, to graciously to be part of the film, and it went from there. And it took ultimately till February of 2020 to finally be finished. And we had an initial showing at the Strand Theater in Zelienople, and then COVID hit, and we took a different path, and now you've been on streaming. But the joy of doing it, and like you said. You said it very well a few minutes ago. If you don't take a chance, you lost.
Right.
Like if you don't take a chance, you failed. So, people are afraid of failing. Well, if you don't do anything, you failed. So, the thing is, why not try something? And if you fail, you fail, but you learn from it. But if you don't do anything, you fail. And in life, life's fun when you do different things. Life is enjoyable when you learn about your skills, and enjoyable when you learn about what you're capable of learning. When it came to filmmaking, I could barely spell filmmaking, 15 years ago. So, you learn of that stuff. And then there's a certain legacy you can leave behind. So that's Amore, which hopefully some of your listeners have seen or would like to watch. Is now available on Amazon Prime. It's available on Tubi. It's available on Roku. It's available on YouTube Movies and available on Movies Plus. So a lot of different ways to see it. And I think most people who watch it, have some very positive things to say. So, and I'm sure your listeners who watch it may feel the same way.
Now, I want to go back because what was funny was you said, most of the things that were popular at the time were horror and mob movies. So you wrote a comedy, a romantic comedy. Okay, you kind of see where I'm going with that one. Not quite the same, but you know what? It's funny. It is funny you say that because I didn't study film either, and it was funny when I started, producing and directing and saying I'm going to do this. Everyone was like, "Well, where have you studied?" I didn't. And I was talking to one of the guys on the set, Vinny, and I said, I kind of feel like that. It's the imposter syndrome. So what I made sure I did was I said, look, I'm gonna tell you what I know, and I'm gonna be honest about what I don't know. And there are a lot of nuances in making a film, but I think like everything, I'm not saying don't study film, but what I learned was, and I still believe this, sometimes doing is the best teacher. Just like you said, some of the terminology, when people say, you need to go get some B-roll. And at first I was like, what the heck's B-roll? And then I find out what B-roll is. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. So there's all these little things that you just don't know what's the term for it. And so I learned it both feet in. And kind of like you, I didn't take as long, but what was funny was I was thinking, I started doing the research and getting everything, starting to line up in January. And I was done by September, and everyone said, wow, that was fast. I'm thinking, that was 9 months. I'm used to things being much quicker from the world that I come from before that. So talk about, you said it took a while. Now, like I said, I get COVID played a little bit of role in that. What were some of the, the eye openers in making a film? Like, what were some of the things that, talk about what you learned. You're like, wow, I had no idea that I was going to run into that, good or bad.
Okay, it's a very good question. We all, and you and I both, have experience in the academic world, and to just kind of move on to what you just said a few minutes ago, there are things that you could learn via books, but there's nothing like what you learn by doing it, right. And that goes without saying in anything, from movies to horseback riding to anything.
That's right.
So. But you still have notions. When you started the movie or started to think about making a movie, there were some notions I had, and Dave had, about how things will play out. But then during it, you started to write it. It took a while to write the script. It was polished, and it's interesting to think about how the script was going to flow from the very beginning to how it ended up. And that's what happens with scripts, at least in our experience, was that you have a notion of how this thing is going to go and how it should go, but then you work on it and it could be a whole different animal at the end, which is like what we did. So we had something that initially we didn't think would go that way, like in detail wise, but that's what happens when you get involved in it, and we're very pleased with it. But then you think about, okay, what is it? What do you do? And the things that, I remember thinking about was all the business end of things. What do we structure ourselves as? Like, this is a business. What do we structure ourselves as? So we sat down and said, well, we should form an LLC.
Right.
And
then exactly what
about,
I did almost immediately.
Which is the smart thing to do. Right. But the thing is, people get stuck. Like, they might go, well, that's going to take money. We don't really have but we were going to do it. We were committed to doing it. Dave and I, who was a terrific partner, committed to doing it what we felt was the professional way. So we had an attorney. We formed an LLC, and then we agreed on the type of financing we each will put in, and then we decided on, okay, now what? So we have the script, and we wrote the script, and we felt comfortable with it. And then I had been doing some films for Point Park at the time, and had some pretty good relationships with the Point Park film film department, and so we talked to them about working for us, like, hiring a crew, because we needed a crew, and and then we needed somebody who knew what a crew should be, who should be on the crew. And so they were great at that. So okay, so now we had a crew, and then what do we do for a cast? And then we put out information that we were looking to hire a cast. And then we had to figure out what, in the different cast members, and it probably, off the top of my head, probably like 12 or 14 cast members, like, what type of actors and we want, and can we get them? And then you had a cast, and then now we think about, we went screen actor skills, so we decided to make it a SAG film, which became more attractive for cast members to apply, and then we decided on equipment. How do we get the equipment? And now all this stuff runs into some costs that you don't think about. And we were so fortunate that we had the relationship with Point Park, that the people at Point Park and the producer we had at Point Park got us the film equipment for free. And we were able to use state-of-the-art equipment for free for a month. And when I insured that equipment, the equipment was insured for $100,000. So it gives you some idea of like
right.
what it would cost to do something like that. But then you get into things like insurance. Okay, so okay, I'm insuring equipment. Now try to find insurance for liability insurance for your cast when you're doing a film, your first film, that will probably be 30 days in production. And how many insurance companies don't even want to touch that? Right. So, we have to find a company that would insure us. Have liability insurance in case anybody got hurt, any problem happened in a location. So again, we were committed to do all those things the right way, but you learn a lot, and you find out that a lot of things in independent filmmaking, particularly for newbies, is they disregard that, or they don't feel like, well, that's going to cost money, let's not do that. But we just wanted to do it the best way, the most comfortable way we did. And then we had some great locations. One of them, as you know, is the Sewickley SOI, the Italian club in Sewickley, PA. We filmed some scene there, and the people, the locations we had, everybody was so gracious. Did everything to make it comfortable for us. And then we finished, and then we had to do sound and editing and that. So it took a long period of time, but to get it right. And when you see the polished product, it makes a difference. Like you see the product, it's like that product the product we produce would be far, far more expensive than it actually cost us without all those things that we were fortunate enough to have. Like the cast.
Well, I was going to say, it's very funny you say that, because I had the exact same thing. Interesting you said insurance. I didn't do insurance. But when you take me the equipment, like I said, I teach here at Robert Morris University, so I was able to basically check out the equipment. Huge cost savings. And, it's funny you brought up insurance, because I didn't even think of it. I was doing a documentary, and I was fortunate enough that in both locations, they were government. The U.S. location in Chambersburg was a historical society, ran it, and so we work with the U.S. Army and in the historical society of Franklin County. So they weren't even asking about insurance. They were just they were just ecstatic. We were doing a documentary. In Italy, we did the interviews in the government building. So again, they're not even talking insurance, but we did have to rent equipment in Italy. We were able to bring a few things like the cameras and lenses, but obviously we needed things like lighting and stands and all that stuff. I want to go back, because there is an entire business to the filmmaking process. Having studied, and I know you didn't study a lot, but having, worked now in this a little more, and having worked with folks that have studied this, do you feel that a lot of these young folks are prepared and ready for the business side?
From my experience, I would say no. I think one of the biggest problems for young filmmakers is money, and the the idea of doing something. Like they may feel they have a wonderful idea, and it's very hard to get financing. But I think a lot of things are done without thinking or even being aware that there are a lot of small details that have to be taken care of.
Right.
So no, I don't. I think it's a far more complicated venture if someone were to really get involved in it and say, we want to do this as professional as possible. And that involves some things that could be painful. Like it's going to be more money, it's going to be more time, it's going to be a lot of headaches trying to get, all the ducks in a row. But, I think that's what makes it's like, coming from the corporate world too, that's what makes a professional product. That's what
right.
makes, so it's no different. It's no different when you take that and say, we want to be professional, and the same ingredients are there. Like you have to get these things done in a professional way, but it's daunting at times. And there's no, I think young filmmakers don't have much of a clue as to all the things, like I mentioned, what we learned, until they do it.
Right.
So yes, I agree with you. I think most of them, as you asked, I don't know if you were in agreement with me or not, but I think most of them really not prepared.
And I kind of saw that even with my crew. So I had some younger folks on there, some independent filmmakers, and it's funny because money. You got to have money to make money. You got to have money to make a film. There's a difference between. And this is what I try to tell you. You can aim a camera at something, hit record, and yes, and then you can put it online, and yep, you're a filmmaker. But that's a very far cry from a no-kidding polished production where the lighting is all uniform, where the sound is uniform, where you have a good storyline, where all those. It's the details that make something goes. It could be even good, but something that goes from good to great. It is the details. At the same time, just having a polished film doesn't make a good movie. A la Hollywood hasn't, in my opinion, made a quote good movie in decades. It's the same. They're kind of rehashing, rebooting because they're completely out of ideas. But they have the money to at least make it look good, even though it may not be necessarily a good film. Joe, I'm going to be right back because I'm going to take a quick break because I've got to pay the bills. Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Puglisi Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Puglisi Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. All right, welcome back. All right, Joe, so we were talking about money and how you were going to wire me $10,000 for sick relatives overseas. Wait a minute. Sorry, wrong conversation. All right, Joe, I want to go back in time, though. Let's talk a little bit about, so you and I, we met over at the Sons of Italy Club over in Sewickley. Love the location. This is a nice shout out. It's a beautiful little location, nice little place to go hang out. So we met over there. Obviously, you have a passion for the Italian culture. Obviously, that's Amore is the name of your film. I want to talk about that. Is that something that was always in you, or is that something that kind of came out later in life? To having grown up in a heavily Sicilian environment, and I guess as I graduated from college and I entered the corporate world in the United States, and I kind of lost that involvement with the Italian culture, and
but I always had a love for it. I always had a love for the culture, a love for the food. I've been to Italy, fortunate enough to be in Italy many times. I took my father to Sicily when he was 70 years old after he had left Sicily when he was 7. I've been in many places in Italy. I love the culture, but it really kind of came more to the forefront maybe about 10 years ago. And part of it is, also being part of the groups like the Italian Club, and really getting involved in really understanding the rich heritage, the Italian culture, and all the things that I grew up with that I have always loved. So there's not, I can't say that for my entire life. Like I was very immersed in Italian culture, but more so in the last 10 years or so that has made me think about that more and be, kind of more proud of it, to be truthful with you.
Right. No, I totally get it. I'm in the same boat. I went off to the military. I had just turned 18. And that was the farthest thing from my mind. I was overseas, and I was on the other side of the world. So I was as far away from Italy as you could get. And to your point, it wasn't until, much later in life. It's just a matter of events that kind of almost like reawaken or in some cases, kind of start, a little kindling a passion for the culture. Then the more you jump in, you go, wow, this is like a really rich, culture. It's a beautiful country. There's just, it's countries within a country. I mean, like you said, you've gone to Sicily. I never went in Sicilia. I've been down as far as Calabria, and I've been up as far north as Milan. But everything in between. It's almost like a different world. Obviously, even the languages are different. As you get older, though, like I said, you really start to really appreciate it and wish. That, wow, I wish I would have, for example, became, fluent when I was younger instead of learning later. I wish I would have learned about all these. I wish when these people were alive, I would have asked them these questions. Let me ask you, is this something that you try and instill in your family now that you kind of have this passion back?
Yes. I mean, that is something that people in my family know how I feel. I am a proponent of travel, and when it comes to traveling, and my first thing is to go to Italy. And the beautiful part about Italy is, as you mentioned, the different sections that exist that you can go to, that are just like different countries. Like you can go to the Italian Riviera, which borders France, and it's Fiorenti Riviera. And one of my most beautiful places I've ever been to is the Amalfi Coast.
Oh yeah.
And
never get tired of that. Yeah. I never get tired of that.
And the island of Capri and Sicily is unique in itself because Sicilians, have, due to history, an interesting thing. If you talk to them, many will say they're not Italian, they're Sicilian, which has to do with back in the 1850s, from what I understand. Garibaldi putting all the Italian states together, and they were kind of forced to be part of Italy. And so there's still some feeling of like, well, we're not Italian, but it is geographically Italy. But the history there is so different. And then you get Rome and the Vatican, and then Florence, where people talk about renting a home and spending time in Florence, going to cooking classes and wine country, and I mean, there's so much to do there, and I just love like sitting in a piazza and just having a glass of wine and maybe even smoking a little cigar, and just when watching the people, it's so different. It's like when I'm there, I go, why can't parts of America be like that? Why can't But we're it's a different country. I mean, but Italy has such a great history to it. And the Romans and all the history involved with it. It's such a fabulous place. I think people want to travel to Europe for the first time. I think the go-to place is Italy.
I
that's what people know. When they talk to me, they know like I that's what I vocalize a lot. And I think it's evident that I am very much upfront with my Italian heritage. And that came, and truthfully, I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of it.
That's good, and you should be, and I'm glad to hear that. And I think a lot of Italians, like I said, there's like a gap, that everybody knows how, 100 years ago or so, when that generation came over, they wanted their kids to become Americans, and I think a lot of traditions have been lost. I think a lot of kind of a natural handing down of the culture was broken, and I think you're seeing different folks out there trying to revive it and bring it back. And I think that's important that the folks like us that appreciate it, enjoy it, love it, let everyone know that. We're still in I know I am, and I suspect we're still in our learning and discovery stage because of everything we've missed over the years. So it's always good that, when we learn something, we can keep pushing that down. And then, hopefully you can't undo the past, but then the next generation doesn't have gaps, and it's all we can hope for. But Joe, what's next for you?
Very good question. Right now, truthfully, I'm enjoying my retirement. I have not pursued anything in the acting field. I would like to do some acting. I like being in front of the camera, but I have not pursued it. Right now, I'm just enjoying myself. Want to do some traveling and taking care of my health and all the good stuff. So right now I'm at a point where I'm fortunate and just enjoying what I want every day, and I love it.
Joe, you're living my dream. I appreciate that very much. Here's what I'm going to do. If everybody looks down in the description, you're going to see a link to that Samore, so you can watch it. I encourage everyone that's tuning in to support each other. We get a chance to watch, especially, something that's not coming out of a major Hollywood film studio, which means it's probably going to be better because it's not coming out of a Hollywood film studio. I encourage you to go out there and watch it. Support our paisans, and even if you're not Italian, Joe's a good guy if you know him personally like I do, and a lot of talent. And Joe, you and I, we're already going to start working on something, God willing, soon. In fact, right before the show, Joe and I were talking. I'm actually kind of trying to finalize a script. Joe, I might just get you what I got and say, help me out with this. And, I'd like to start getting rolling on something because I'm like you. I missed a lot of decades. There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas for a lot of reasons. And it's, by the way, it's funny you said what you said before. I, too, was shy in high school. The irony in what we ended up doing later in life. You're in a film. I did a documentary. I'm on air. You're a public media guy, filmmaker now. I know I would never have done this 30, 40 years ago, but there's a point in life where you say, the hell with it. And like you, I don't have the formal, 4-year degree in filmmaking, but you know what? I enjoy it. And, I'm going to keep doing it. And hopefully my personal goal is to do a project a year. And Joe, I am really looking forward to you and I collaborating this year, sooner rather than later. And, it's going to be a nice cultural piece. I think people are going to like it.
Steve, I appreciate that. And I look forward to that myself. And I also am very impressed that you're someone who's very diligent about what you want to do, and if you say you're going to do it, you're going to do it, and that makes people successful. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show. You do a very good job, and grazie, my friend.
Grazie mille, Giuseppe, grazie mille per tutto.
All
right.
Buongiorno. And listen, you take care and hope to see you soon, okay?
Absolutely. You will indeed, sir. I'll see you around the club. And everyone, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank all of my listeners from all over the world. Again, I cannot stress this. I am truly humbled by the fact that there are people all over the world downloading my little podcast and tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you, folks. Another big country that has been hitting me is Brazil. So, obrigado, that's Portuguese, which obviously they don't speak Spanish in Brazil. They speak Portuguese. So I want to thank the folks in Brazil that have been tuning in. Thank you very much. And again, I hope to see you all in some way, form or fashion in the near future in person. I'm trying to get out there and do more events. But in the meantime, continue to tune into the podcast. I appreciate the fact you're taking time. God bless you, and we'll see you again in the near future.